cannot have any discipline when he does this. And I got an exercise for President Trump. I think it would be great for him the morning after Christmas to tell the American public what his grandchildren received for Christmas. He of gilded Oval Offices and ballrooms and gold dripping from everywhere, his excesses on a personal level, how dare him tell people how many dolls they can buy their children or how many pencils they can have. This guy is a walking hypocrite when it comes to conspicuous consumption.
Yeah, I mean, build the $300 million ballroom, but don't get an extra doll for your child.
Yeah.
So, John, this is, as you know better than anybody, his advisors, people around him, have said to him, actually, Mr. President, the affordability question is very real, and that includes your supporters having trouble paying for their groceries. We need to get on the right side of this. And then he goes out and makes that speech mocking that very idea.
Yeah, the West Wing since Election Day in early November has realized, hey, this is a real thing. Like the voters, the voters have registered their disapproval to our handling of prices. They've staged some events in the building, and now the president finally, his first rally in many months, his first trip outside of Mar-a-Lago in 2+ months, yesterday to Pennsylvania, comes, he went wildly off message yet again. And that mocking the very idea of an affordability crisis, as you noted, there were some interviews with people in the crowd afterwards, just like, well, that's simply not my reality. And now the White House is saying to President Trump, this is just going to be the first of many events. They think he's going to be on the road next year to barnstorm for candidates for the midterms.
Journal columnist William Galston writes in a new piece titled, "Trump isn't beating the high cost of living," writing, "Inflation and the cost of living were the dominant."
The affordability issue could severely damage Republican prospects in the 2026 midterms, and it could sink the Trump presidency. But there's a problem. Mr. Trump isn't buying it. Newt Gingrich knows better. Any Republican who refuses to admit we have an affordability problem is not listening to the American people, the former House Speaker says. Tariffs on building materials drive up the cost of home construction, as do mass deportations of hard-to-replace construction workers. Guest worker programs keyed to America's economic needs would make much more sense than the administration's blunderbuss immigration policy. So would a serious bipartisan attack on the causes of rising health care costs? Denying the fact of rising prices won't work, and hoping that things will get better won't either. That is the Wall Street Journal. On the impact of the President Trump's tariffs, the editors of the National Review have a piece titled, "Trump Bails Out the Farmers He Kneecapped with Tariffs Again." The National Review writes this: "Farmers have indeed had a terrible year. Crop prices have been depressed by the largest harvest on record, and farm bankruptcies have increased by nearly 50% since last year. But Trump's tariffs have made farmers' plight much worse, simultaneously driving crop prices down and input prices up. The proper solution to farmers' financial woes in 2025 is the same as it was in 2018. End the tariffs. Instead, the Trump administration has chosen to paint over the problem with a $12 billion bailout. So much for the tariff's supposed deficit reduction. This is command and control economics at its worst, something that congressional Republicans once recognized. Trump wants to have it both ways on agriculture, smacking farmers with one hand while paying them off with the other. If only the government would let farmers buy whatever inputs they need and sell the crops to whomever they wish without inserting itself. That is the National Review. So, Jonathan Martin, put that together with what we just heard from the Wall Street Journal. You can't square that with the message that the president delivered last night in the Poconos.
No, and you look, as John mentioned, LeMaire mentioned, he hadn't done a rally since July. He basically hadn't traveled at all domestically except to his golf clubs. And, he responds, Willie, by turning on his own staff, breaking the fourth wall as he actually does, and reading the stage directions out loud. He says, my chief of staff told me we had to start doing rallies again. We have to go back on the campaign trail. So he's grudgingly doing this. They print up really well-produced signs. The Advance looks lovely. It's lower prices, bigger paychecks, and then he gets up there and does the usual Friars Club meets George Wallace routine for a couple of hours. And, you know, it's his usual shtick, but as you guys point out, it's just not driving any kind of message that his party needs. Guys, he's not interested in driving a message that his party needs. He wants to stand up there and do his stand-up shtick. It's just not helping the party.
That's the thing.
What can be done? They'll try to get him to do more rallies. He's never going to be on message. He's always going to mock Democrats for coming up with this issue. He wants to break the fourth wall, as he often does, and say his staff made him do this. And I don't think that changes. And like the idea that he's somehow going to go on a 3-stop-a-day small business tour across the Midwest at 80 years old next year and barnstorm about his record is just fantasy. It's not who he is. So I'll say this. The GOP has a choice to make. You either keep Trump on the sideline and give up the bully pulpit, which you desperately need to drive a message in the midterms, or you deploy like the most unreliable surrogate you have who's always going to veer off message. It's not a great choice.
And Mika, not only did not stay on the message, he mocked the message. He veered off. I don't. The average voter, the average voter who can't afford groceries isn't interested in Ilhan Omar's marital history. And he goes on a long rant about that. We were talking about reaction. This is a quote at the end of the New York Times piece. You mentioned David Sanger from one voter who was there. Affordability is out of control. It's painful to go to the grocery store. I could stop eating, I suppose. This is Donna Benny, a tailor and seamstress. She added, I'm offended that he finds the affordability crisis a hoax. He's probably never paid an electricity bill or shopped for groceries in his life.
So the word invalidating comes to mind here, and it's sort of the overall arc of Trump's America right now, if you're really cluing in. Invalidating, hypocrisy, and confusion on every level. On the economy, he calls it a hoax. He spends an entire evening in Pennsylvania kind of joking about it and telling people to buy less. Meanwhile, his tariffs are part of what's tanking it, are part of what's making people hurt. So that's confusing. That seems hypocritical. That is very invalidating. Then you have foreign policy, blowing up boats, potential war crimes, murdering survivors. Meanwhile, pardoning the former president of Honduras. That's hypocrisy or confusing at the very least. And then you have all along the edges here, all across America, these ICE raids. And let's take a minute to see what everyone gets to see. It's not just Democrats who are seeing it, because now you hear of Republicans who are really uncomfortable about what they're seeing, because these are their neighbors. These are people in their communities. Families traumatized. Now we're hearing of citizenship ceremonies being interrupted, like taking the cruelty to a level of beyond imagination, inhumane. They're about to become citizens, and it gets yanked away, and they are deported. We have that reporting coming up. We also have coming up a report by Amnesty International about the conditions at Alligator Alcatraz that are tantamount to torture in the United States of America. And it's great that there was a hearing yesterday about U.S. citizens who were mistakenly brought into these raids. But what about the migrants, the illegal immigrants, the people who are here on American soil being treated like animals? That's what's happening right here. That right there is how you sum it all up. Meanwhile, there are some tea leaves on the Democratic side, albeit small, and we don't know. We've learned not to get ahead of ourselves and prognosticate on terms of what might happen. But Democrat Eileen Higgins has won the closely watched Miami mayoral race. Higgins made history, becoming the first woman ever to lead the city. Her victory also marks the first time a Democrat has won the Miami mayoral race in nearly 30 years. Higgins campaigned as a Democrat despite the race technically being nonpartisan. She defeated Trump-endorsed Emilio Gonzalez was by nearly 20 points. Democrats also claimed to win last night in Georgia, where their candidate flipped a statehouse seat in a red-leaning district. Democrat Eric Gissler is projected to defeat Republican Matt Guest in the fourth in the special election in Georgia's House, District 121, according to unofficial results from the Secretary of State's office. Gissler's victory would be a major upset in a district President Trump won last year by 12 points. Gissler lost the race for the same district back in 2024 by 22 points. Joining us now live from Miami, White House reporter for Axios, Mark Caputo. Mark, what are you hearing about these specific elections?
I think when you put everything in context, it was a good night for Democrats, and it's one of those things, certainly in Florida, where Republicans said this is sort of a gut check time. Yes, it's true, all of these elections are sort of unique in their own way, but there's a general pattern, whether it's in Florida, whether it's in Georgia, or whether it was in Tennessee with the congressional race recently, is that when Republicans are winning in very strong Trump seats, they're not winning by as much. And when there are purple seats, Democrats are winning them. The city of Miami is an interesting sort of jurisdiction, because even though people associate the city of Miami with Miami-Dade County more broadly, this is sort of a blue performing city in major elections. But in mayoral elections and local elections and odd year elections, Republicans have dominated. That ended last night, and it ended majorly and in a big way that got a lot of people's attention.
So, Mark, Eileen Higgins, who will be the next mayor now of Miami, made as part of her campaign and central to her campaign these ICE raids, the immigration raids. She talked about it again last night in her victory speech, and we're talking to the media afterward as well, calling them inhumane and a scourge in the community there in Miami-Dade. So how important were they to her victory?
I think that is important. To use the affordability word again, that was a major messaging issue for Eileen Higgins. The city of Miami, Miami-Dade County, South Florida, Florida, very expensive place to live. It's not just tariffs, by the way, it's insurance, which is killing a lot of people. And then in addition to that, they did a lot of messaging that was sort of anti-Trump in order to motivate their base. If you look at the turnout of last night, there was about 41% of the electorate was Democrat and about 34% was Republican. That's called a D+7 electorate. She won by almost 19 points. So it means she didn't just win Democrats big. She might have won a lot of Republicans, and she did really well with independents. So her message across the board was well received and very effective.
Mark, I'm interested in who showed up down there to campaign. I saw Rahm Emanuel was there. Obviously, that's somebody who has his eye on something else and sees Florida as an electoral college-rich state and wants to put down roots there early. What can you tell us about who showed up? And frankly, I think, could you clarify whether or not the DNC getting involved really had an impact on this election? My sense is that it didn't.
You are correct. When the DNC announced on November 20th that it was going all in on the Miami mayoral race, by then it was pretty clear that Eileen Higgins was going to win. Her own internal polling showed that Trump's net approval rating was negative 17 percentage points, which is pretty bad. And her internal polling showed she was going to win by about double digits. Her Higgins campaign thought maybe she'd win by 9 or 10. Again, she won by 18. You know, more broadly, the problem that Democrats have in Florida is that for years, for decades, they have not done sort of the spade work that's necessary to keep the voter rolls alive, to conduct effective voter registration. They've also been hamstrung a bit by national forces that are beyond their control and by a party that drifts more leftward than the electorate itself. The other thing is Florida sort of imports Republican super voters, older retirees who don't want to pay income taxes and taxes, and that is sort of an advantage for Republicans as well. I would caution Democrats looking at the Miami mayoral race into thinking, oh, this means we're going to win Florida. That having been said, Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar, who is the South Florida Congresswoman, one of the three, who represents the Miami area and the city of Miami, she's probably looking at a very difficult race. She has already started to change a lot of her messaging and has become more critical of Trump's immigration policies and proposals. And I expect you're going to see more of that as she fights to stay alive and avoid what happened.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's military chief has told soldiers occupying the Gaza Strip that the yellow line dividing the Palestinian territory under President Trump's ceasefire plan will become a new border for Israel. The comments by Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir come despite a provision in the October ceasefire deal stating that, quote, Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza, unquote. Such a move would give Israel control of more than half of Gaza's territory, including farmland and the Rafah border crossing with Egypt. Meanwhile, a new report by Reporters Without Borders finds Israel's killed more journalists in 2025 than any other country for the third year running. The report found Israel's military liable for the deaths of 29 Palestinian journalists among 67 journalists killed around the world this year. In occupied East Jerusalem, the United Nations has condemned a raid by Israeli forces on the headquarters of the UN's Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, known as UNRWA. A spokesperson for the UN Secretary General said the raid directly violates international law.
Police motorcycles as well as trucks and forklifts were brought in, and all communications were cut. Furniture, IT equipment, and other property was seized, and the UN flag was pulled down and replaced by the Israeli flag. This compound remains United Nations premises and is inviolable and immune from any other form of interference.
The U.S. Supreme Court signaled Monday it's prepared to make it easier for President Trump to fire independent government officials despite laws barring the president from removing them without cause. On Monday, the court heard oral arguments in the case of Federal Trade Commission member Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, who was fired by the White House in March. The court's right-wing majority cast doubt on a 90-year-old precedent known as Humphrey's Executor, which grants a president the power to fire a board member only for, quote, inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office, unquote. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor warned that move would, quote, destroy the structure of government, unquote, while Justice Elena Kagan warned it would grant the president near unlimited power.
So the result of what you want is that the president is going to have massive, unchecked, uncontrolled power, not only to do traditional execution, but to make law through legislative and adjudicative frameworks.
A ruling in the Supreme Court case is expected by June. Until then, the court has allowed the White House's firing of Rebecca Kelly Slaughter and other commissioners to remain in effect. President Trump has walked back his remarks last week when asked if he would release video showing a series of strikes on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean on September 2nd. Previously, Trump said he had, quote, no problem releasing the footage. But speaking to reporters Monday, Trump defended Defense Secretary Hegseth while insulting ABC's Rachel Scott, who pressed him on whether he would release the full video.
Admitted to releasing the full video?
Didn't I just tell you that?
You said that it was up to Secretary
You're the most obnoxious reporter in the whole place. Let me just tell you, you are an obnoxious, actually a terrible reporter, and it's always the same thing with you. I told you, whatever Pete Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
Recently, President Trump called CBS's Nancy Cordes stupid, Katie Rogers from the New York Times ugly, and when Catherine Lucy of Bloomberg News asked him about releasing the Epstein files, Trump told her, quiet, piggy. Despite claiming to target alleged drug boats in the Pacific and the Caribbean, President Trump has used his power to pardon about 100 people accused of drug-related crimes. That's according to a Washington Post analysis. Just last week, Trump pardoned former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was sentenced to 45 years in prison for conspiring to distribute more than 400 tons of cocaine in the United States. On Monday night, the Honduran Attorney General announced he'd instructed his government and Interpol to arrest Hernandez. Meanwhile, a 2016 video unearthed by CNN of Defense Secretary Hegseth shows him repeatedly warning the U.S. military should refuse unlawful orders.
If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief.
Republican lawmakers have unveiled a bill to authorize $901 billion in military spending for the next fiscal year. House Speaker Mike Johnson says the National Defense Authorization Act would, quote, ensure our military forces remain the most lethal in the world, unquote. In a statement, Public Citizen's Robert Weissman responded, quote, the last person who should be entrusted with an even bigger budget is the dangerous and lawless Pete Hegseth, as Hegseth illegally targets civilian boats near Venezuela with expensive Hellfire missiles, wastefully and recklessly deploys the National Guard in cities around the country, and teases an unconstitutional and costly war. Congress should refuse to add a penny to his budget, unquote. Meanwhile, lawmakers have attached a provision to the NDAA that would withhold money from Hegseth's travel budget if the Pentagon refuses to hand over video of the September 2nd boat strike. President Trump's announced a $12 billion aid package to farmers struggling from the devastating effects of his tariffs. Farm bankruptcies rose by nearly 50% this year compared to last. President Trump's tariffs on China cut its imports of U.S. soybeans to zero before a deal was reached in October. Democratic Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon criticized the bailout for farmers, saying, quote, instead of proposing government handouts, Donald Trump should end his destructive tariff spree so American farmers can compete and win on a level playing field, he said. In Minnesota, students and staff at Augsburg University in Minneapolis say federal immigration agents pointed guns at a crowd that gathered to protest the arrest of an undergraduate student Saturday. In a statement, the university wrote that the ICE agents lacked a signed judicial warrant, which is required for them to enter private buildings. It was just one of several reports of ICE agents physically threatening and wrongfully detaining people swept up in what ICE is calling Operation Metro Surge, targeting Minnesota's Somali community, which President Trump has described in a racist tirade as garbage. In Washington state, Democratic Senator Patty Murray is condemning an incident where ICE agents released an attack dog on one of her constituents last month in Vancouver. According to Senator
I just want to say that, the president is supposed to be a leader for peace. The president is supposed to be a leader for peace. And his racist comments about Somalia, you could see the violence that he's spewing on the streets. They continuously look stupid because they criticize the Dems. Everything has to be a label. The Dems, the liberals. Because Mr. Kelly said the same thing that Pete Hegseth said. And then they should be hung, called for their execution for saying the same exact basic thing and then they show Pete Hegseth saying the same exact thing 2 years ago. They continuously look stupid, man. This is their traitors for saying the same thing Pete Hegseth said. This is the basic law. You don't have to follow a law. And these ICE agents, they don't have warrants. They have they're not signed by the judge. So they're non-judicial warrants, which they're no good. They don't hold up in court if you have a good lawyer. So when you stand up to them and say, no, you need a judicial warrant, this is what's happening. But Trump called Somalians dirtballs. all Somalians are dirtballs. And it just spews violence. The Squirrel Hill shooting, when they killed people in Squirrel Hill, this is horrible and awful, man. You're supposed to give words of peace. And quit saying they're all corrupt. They're not all corrupt. There's plenty of people that are not corrupt.
Democratic Senator Patty Murray is condemning an incident where ICE agents released an attack dog on one of her constituents last month in Vancouver. According to Senator Murray, Wilmer Toledo Martinez suffered horrific injuries after an ICE agent lured him out of his home before violently arresting him. His neighbor, John Williams Sr., witnessed the attack. He spoke to TV station KGW.
His wife screaming, the kids in the car screaming. I'm glad his 7-year-old daughter wasn't here. The 2- and 3-year-old was here. And we were trying to ask what's going on. And they're telling her to get back, or we're going to sick the dog on you. I never saw nothing like this in my life, close up with no one, you know. And it hurts. It really hurts, man, especially happening to a young man like that, man. You know, a good, honest young man.
Toledo Martinez was hospitalized, received stitches for gruesome injuries. His attorney says ICE delayed his medical care for several hours and that a prescription for antibiotics was never filled by staff at the Northwest ICE Processing Center in Tacoma, where he's been held since his arrest. In a statement, Senator Murray said, quote, "This should shock the conscience of every one of us. I do not want to live in an America where federal agents can sick attack dogs on peaceful residents with impunity and face no consequences," the senator said. California's Department of Justice has announced a new online portal for members of the public to share videos, photos, and other evidence documenting unlawful activity by ICE agents. This follows similar efforts in other states, including Illinois and New York. Meanwhile, the maker of the smartphone app ICE Block has sued the Trump administration on First Amendment grounds after the Justice Department pressured Apple to remove its software from its App Store. Before Apple banned the software in October, ICE Block allowed users to anonymously track reported sightings of ICE agents. A dozen former FBI agents filed a lawsuit accusing FBI Director Kash Patel and other officials of unlawfully firing them for kneeling during a 2020 protest after the death of George Floyd. The lawsuit claims the agents knelt to, quote, "diffuse a volatile situation, not as an expressive political act," unquote. Meanwhile, Patel reportedly yelled at agents on the security detail for his girlfriend to drive her allegedly drunk friend home. This comes as a leaked report compiled by retired and active-duty FBI special agents and analysts called the agency under Patel a, quote, rudderless ship and chronically underperforming. Paramount Skydance has launched a nearly $78 billion hostile takeover offer for Warner Bros. Discovery just days after Warner Bros. Accepted a $72 billion deal from Netflix. Paramount said it secured funding commitments from the sovereign wealth funds of Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Qatar, along with support from Affinity Partners, the private equity firm run by Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law. President Trump reportedly favors Paramount to acquire Warner Bros. Discovery and remarked over the weekend he'll intervene in the federal review process of Netflix's proposed deal. We'll have more on this story after headlines. President Trump's accused his political enemies, including Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, of mortgage fraud for claiming more than one primary residence on her loans. Now a ProPublica investigation finds President Trump himself did the same thing in the 1990s when he took out 2 Florida mortgages and claimed each home would be his main residence. According to ProPublica, President Trump never lived in the 2 Florida houses and instead used them as rental properties. Kathleen Engel, a Suffolk University law professor and leading expert on mortgage finance, told ProPublica, quote, given Trump's position on situations like this, he's going to either need to fire himself or refer himself to the Department of Justice. Trump has deemed that this type of misrepresentation in the 1990s when he took out including Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, of mortgage fraud for claiming more than one primary residence on her loans. Now a ProPublica investigation finds President Trump himself did the same thing in the 1990s when he took out 2 Florida mortgages and claimed each home would be his main residence. And finds President Trump himself did the same thing in the 1990s when he took out 2 Florida mortgages and claimed each home would be his main residence. According to ProPublica, President Trump never lived in the 2 Florida houses and instead used them as rental properties. Kathleen Engel, a Suffolk University law professor and leading expert on mortgage finance, told ProPublica, quote, "Given Trump's position on situations like this, he's going to either need to fire himself or refer himself to the Department of Justice. Trump has deemed that this type of misrepresentation is sufficient to preclude someone from serving the country," unquote. Fighting between Thailand and Cambodia has erupted again after Thailand launched airstrikes Monday along its disputed border with Cambodia. A Thai soldier and 4 Cambodian civilians were killed in the renewed fighting as both sides accused each other of breaching a ceasefire deal brokered by President Trump in October. Earlier this year, at least 48 people were killed and 300,000 forced to flee their homes in the 5-day conflict. This is the spokesperson for the Cambodian Defense Ministry.
The second invasion activity by the Thai side shows clearly their intention to grab their neighbor's land, using a unilateral map and using force to change borders.
And here in New York, the longtime peace activist Cora Weiss has died at the age of 91. 48 Cambodian quote. Expert on mortgage finance told ProPublica Trump has deemed it again after Thailand launched airstrikes Monday along its disputed border with Cambodia. A Thai soldier and 4 Cambodian civilians were killed in the renewed fighting as both sides accused each other of breaching a ceasefire deal brokered by President Trump in October. Earlier this year, at least 48 people were killed and 300,000 forced to flee their homes in the 5-day conflict. This is the spokesperson for the Cambodian Defense Ministry.
The second invasion activity by the Thai side shows clearly their intention to grab their neighbor's land, using a unilateral map and using force to change borders.
And here in New York, the longtime peace activist Cora Weiss has died at the age of 91 after decades of advocacy demanding civil rights, nuclear disarmament, gender equality, and the abolition of war. In the 1960s, Cora Weiss was a national leader of Women's Strike for Peace, which played a major role in bringing about the end of nuclear testing in the atmosphere. She organized protests against the Vietnam War and served as president of the Hague Appeal for Peace. She was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize multiple times. Cora Weiss also served for decades on the board of Downtown Community Television. She last appeared on Democracy Now! In 2022.
Climate change and nuclear weapons are the apocalyptic twins, and we have to prevent one and get rid of the other. We have to abolish nuclear weapons immediately. There should be no question about it anymore. They're too dangerous and unnecessary. And who wants to destroy the world and the lives of everybody in it?
Cora Weiss's husband, Peter Weiss, the well-known human rights attorney, died several weeks ago, just shy of his 100th birthday. Cora Weiss died yesterday on Peter Weiss's 100th birthday. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all.
His MAGA base, I think that they can look at what's going on around them and go, gosh, things aren't getting better, and in many cases, things are getting worse for us. We can't afford things that we used to be able to have all the time. It starts there. And then they can see Trump siding with Russia on Ukraine, and they can see that that's wrong. And they can see that he's blowing up boats with these poor people who have been hired or their families have been taken prisoner and kidnapped, and they are threatened to move these drugs across the ocean. That is, if they are drug runners. We don't even know. I think they can see that something is wrong here, and it's all on Trump. You can't blame it on Biden. You can't, it just doesn't work anymore. We're too far into this. This is all Trump's, and his supporters get to feel it and see it. Politico's Jonathan Martin, thank you very much. His latest piece is available to read online right now.
Thanks,
Coming up, we'll talk to Richard Haass about President Trump's new national security strategy for the United States, including concerns it aligns with Russia's vision. Morning Joe will be right back.
Still dealing with moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease symptoms despite treatment?
On just standard transactions, and your mortgage is 8.5%, and then the cost of money for a business is at 10%. That's very expensive money, and the economy feels it. So I think on the economy side and in keeping the House and majority in the Republican side, three things have to happen. The economy has to feel better. That's subjective.
Because you know Antoine is ready to go out with all his candidates and say, does this economy feel good to you?
We agree. The economy needs to feel better.
Do you agree?
But is the White House making that case enough? I mean, we heard from President Trump last night for 90 minutes. Do you think that he effectively made the case and spoke empathetically, which I know some Republicans have been asking him to do, spoke empathetically about what people are facing on the economy?
He's on the road, and he understands that's a vulnerability because the economy has to feel better. But also the tariffs have to lead the trade deals, because the tariffs out there provide uncertainty in the market. And lastly, interest rates have to come down.
Congressman, respectfully, the president has denied that we have an affordability crisis. Most reasonable people would agree by all metrics and how we measure the economy. Maganomics has been a failure. 1.2 million jobs have been lost since this president has taken over this economy. Already mentioned energy prices up 5%. You mentioned energy services up 7.2%, energy and utility up 13%.
You can see they're ready to run with this message.
What I'm saying to you is, Americans are responding at the ballot box. I would say it a different way. Whatever you put in your little red wagon, you must push or pull. What Americans are saying at the ballot box, election after election, the affordability crisis you all have created, we reject that because you made a promise otherwise at the ballot box.
Yeah, talk about that promise.
Right. So here's the promises.
Yeah.
Secure the border.
Right.
Is the border secure? Yes. Peace. How many peace deals have been done? A few. I think 8, right? Affordability, gas prices, and energy prices are the key. You say energy prices are up. I don't think so at the gas pump. So join the gas pump guys that look at the costs.
But if people are looking at their rent, health premiums, food, electricity, are they going to wait for you to drill somewhere, or do they want to see a piece of legislation that helps them right now?
So again, affordability, and we all agree, it's not easy out there. So affordability
Except
is
the president
an issue.
doesn't agree with you, because he's time and time again said that he does not think we have an affordability crisis.
He believes his policy, so do I. I believe his policies are correct, bringing jobs back.
Well, 1.2 million have been lost. So
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to let you go because guess what? You have to go campaign on this fairly soon in the coming months. So I'm intrigued to see how that plays out.
3 things have to happen.
Yeah.
You're right. The economy has to feel better. And that's subjective. It might feel better for you, for me, but it's got to feel better overall.
It doesn't feel good for me.
Tariffs got to go to trade deals, and the interest rates, which is the big one. If
Yeah, to see what I haven't done yet. Sorry, the sound has been up. I was playing this game before Super Mario Wonder, and I got pretty far, but I completed this game, but I didn't get all stars. So I thought I would check it out and try it again and see what I didn't get before. Courses. What haven't I done? What stars haven't I gotten? So this one I've never done. See, look. Jump, jump, jump. Jump, jump 2, never did. Missing one, never did. Looks like Palace I never did. Or I did. Oh, okay, so you should be looking at the stars at the bottom. There's missing ones. See, I don't know why they're not open. Parachute Cap 2. Let's try that one. Sunbaked Skirmish. Go this way. How do you get up there? Cool, I got hit, but take a sacrifice for the win. Whoa. Yeah. Easy peasy. once we figure it out. Easy peasy. What's this? Oh. Got it. You got to kind of go quick because otherwise they build up lots more hammers. Got it. Looks like I had already gotten it. Yeah, I already beat this game. I just wanted to check it out again. I think there's certain areas I haven't done. Maybe this one. Certain things I haven't done. I didn't 100% this game, and actually I thought there was a lot that I didn't do. You could open up the boss with like 45 stars or whatever, 70, but there's 100 in the game, so there's a good 10 levels I've never done. What's to go in here? Oh, I see. It's obvious once you see it. One step at a time. Oh, and then you got to go back. One step at a time. Oops, not the way I planned it. It's nice I got that right back. It's like here. So this. Oh! You have to not be the elephant. The way I might want to. I wanted to go get that elephant, though. Hey, there he is. This guy. Pushing back. Sense of humor. This whole thing. This is great, super. Push 3 of these. Mario must be strong. Oh no. Come on, why can't I bounce off the wall, dude? Look. Oh, wait. Basic moves now? No. Shit. Jump up there, man. There we go. Oh no. Yeah, help me wall climb a little bit. You go from big to elephant. Now you got it. Yeah, I found you. There's half a door here. It's easy enough. We just have to. Push these back and forth a little bit. With these sun guys. It's gonna come right down on my head. There you go. Put the door together to go to another round. Does it matter where you put the door? Not sure. Oh, wait, you actually want to. Hey, looks like I hadn't done that one. Oh. Fun guy, fun. No. It's like going by itself. I didn't want to do that. Whoa. I didn't know you jumped off your bubbles. Donkey Kong 3. Oh, I tried to get that 10 stir. Oh, you have to bounce off of them, guys.